Our next speaker is Joshua Carlos. He is a graduate student in the Department of Kinesiology, and he'll be talking to us today about the 3 Wins program here at CSUN and how to help students figure out what to do next.
When I was 5 years old, I wanted to be an archaeologist. Why? 2 reasons. 1, I used to think archaeologists dug up dinosaurs. And 2, I could pronounce archaeologist. 20 years later, I no longer want to be an archaeologist. And in case you were wondering, they do not dig up dinosaurs. Instead, I have ambitions to pursue a doctorate degree to be able to teach at the university level and implement programs such as 3 Wins Fitness. But what is 3 Wins Fitness? 3 Wins Fitness is a free diabetes prevention and exercise program that is implemented by kinesiology students and catered to primarily underserved communities. But more importantly, why is it called 3 Wins Fitness? The program is founded on the philosophy that you should seek a minimum of 3 wins in all that you do to provide a more substantial product than the typical win-win situation that is often pursued. For our program, the 3 wins are the student, the participant, and the community. My research is focused on the student perspective and how 3 wins affects student success and professional development. Because, like me, and probably most of us in this room, we don't know what's next after college. And sometimes, we don't know what's next while we're in college. The question of what's next is daunting and terrifying. It's the fear of the unknown, the fear that we won't have the skills, knowledge, or experience to answer our what's next. And so I have a question for you all. Don't worry, it's not what's next. How many of you fulfill the physical activity guidelines of engaging in at least 150 minutes of moderate physical activity per week? Clap your hands once for affirmation. Okay. Now I want to share an image with you. This is a map of the United States and the physical inactivity rates within each state. I'll give you a second to look. As of 2017, at least 20% of adults in all but 2 states are physically inactive. To put that in perspective, think back to how many of you clapped your hands in this room. From a health perspective, this is a pandemic. From a business perspective, this screams job opportunities for kinesiology. But just because you hold a degree in kinesiology doesn't mean you have the necessary skills or experience to fulfill those job opportunities. And that's where 3 Wins comes in. 3 Wins can act as the gateway to those job opportunities. And so comes my research. The purpose of my research was to investigate the effects 3 Wins Fitness has on student success and professional development that could translate into 2 things. First, to get more kinesiology students engaged in the 3 Wins Fitness program that would allow us to provide our services to more communities. And 2, encourage other universities to institutionalize the program, thereby expanding the program and further reducing physical inactivity rates. I used a qualitative approach that took interview testimonies of past and current 3 Wins Fitness members that were involved in the program for at least 1 semester. For a more thorough investigation, the subjects that I interviewed were involved in the program at various stages of their academic career. They were either an undergraduate, graduate, or an alumni. In addition, these subjects were also in various stages of their professional career. They were either a student or already employed at the time of the interview. Interviews were conducted both in person and utilizing the video calling service Zoom, and I used both prepared and open-ended questions. Prepared questions were given ahead of time because, as we all know, sometimes on-the-spot questioning doesn't always elicit the best responses. I mean, how many of you have your lineup of favorite songs and movies, but when asked, you couldn't name one? I wanted thoughtful responses to really dissect the student experience of 3 Wins Fitness. And so the bulk of my research data comes from the prepared question, what were your 3 wins from being a part of the program? From the 23 subjects I interviewed, 7 themes emerged and were classified into 2 major categories: major wins and minor wins. Major wins were classified as over 50% of subjects either explicitly saying or describing the win, and they include personal growth, such as increased confidence, networking, opportunities such as application of classroom content, and professional development. Minor wins were identified if less than 50% of subjects either explicitly said or described, and they included engaging with the community, leadership, and support from both faculty, staff, and other 3WINS Fitness members. But just as earning your degree doesn't guarantee employment, joining 3WINS Fitness does not guarantee that these wins will occur. Instead, my research demonstrates what's possible with 3WINS Fitness. Previous research with 3WINS Fitness identified how to implement the program through expanding to other universities, but it lacked the ability to articulate and really understand the effects 3WINS Fitness has on students and the university, which allows for a better sales pitch if we're looking at expansion. So while I wanted to be an archaeologist way back when, 3WINS Fitness gave me a future. It gave me the opportunity to differentiate myself and stand out from the crowd. And what I want students to understand, whether you're not involved but not actively engaged, and those students implementing the program at other universities, these wins are not automatic. Instead, they're manifested through significant investment in the program. And so with my research, I hope that it gives students the opportunity to differentiate themselves, stand out, and control their destiny. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for your interesting talk. I wanted to ask you if you could go into a little bit of some of the limitations to your study regarding recruitment and also the way that you asked your questions.
Absolutely. So inclusion criteria, we used a 3WINS Fitness email database that was already established from previous research, and so we reached out to both past and current members, and then there were some members that were identified by my advisor that we wanted to also reach out to that were alumni that were no longer a part of that emails list. So that could be a limitation is most of the responses were from individuals that were reached out personally versus a part of the group email list that was sent out. And can you repeat your second question, sorry?
Well, also, just looking at limitations of how you asked the questions and the kinds of questions that you asked.
Okay, so the way I did it was prepared questions. They were kind of asked in succession, but depending on the participant, or excuse me, the subject's response, that was my cue for any open-ended questions that I either wanted for them to elaborate or to get more information from their initial response.
So, and I'm not saying it's not a great study, but I wanted to ask you, do you think that you asked primarily only for positive feedback, and what was the impact of that?
Looking back, yeah, I think that the questions were geared towards giving a more positive response, although there were some students that did identify limitations of the program, whether it was in response to leadership or how the program was implemented on site. But yeah, I think that definitely could be a limitation.
And then people that participate in 3WINS, is it a voluntary thing, or do they sign up for it versus doing something different with their time as
From the
teenagers?
student perspective or
Yeah.
the participant?
From the student perspective.
So from the student perspective, they are either receiving academic internship credit through the Department of Kinesiology, or they come on as volunteers. So we have both.
Did you control for people that did other activities instead of 3WINS to see a comparison?
No, but we did have students that were involved in other activities, and they did describe that during the study.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.